2 weeks later, a window hinge creaked. A shadow flew down the wall. The quiet patter of silent feet hit the ground. The same shadow slid through the night-shrouded room. Tables covered in equipment and vials filled the apparent laboratory. The shadow crouched near one. He slid several things close, and a small light flickered onto them. The being of dark scanned paper after paper. Then, tink. A noise stole his attention. His face jerked in the direction from which it came. The silhouette of a man stood in a doorway. His flashlight flickered onto the spot where the shadow had been. But customary to shadows, they are never where the light is. The spot was empty. The same light slid across the room with its companions, suspicious eyes following. The light slid past a door to a closet, but the eyes weren't accurate enough to see the shadow's hand vanish behind the door. However, they did notice the door. It wasn't open before. The man drew a weapon from a holster. He slid the door more open, then yanked it wide. Light flooded the small room. Nothing but vials and dishes. The light, and the eyes, and the man they belonged to turned away. The door closed. A shadow remained a bit darker, however, on the ceiling. Its muscles quivered as it could barely hold its position, pushing out tightly with all four limbs against the walls. Something else sensed this, however. A smaller shadow. A smaller shadow trapped in a small vial. For testing purposes, no doubt. A sample. It perceived the other much larger, stronger shadow. It could see its adrenaline, its emotion, its feeling. It knew. It wanted. It shoved. It shoved again. So close to the edge it had been. So near the end of the shelf. But this desire it now had from seeing its object of desire so close and so perfect drove it over the edge. And it funneled it. To push its prison over the edge. Jump and hit, jump and hit, jump and hit. Finally, one last slam against its glass-walled prison. Its target was about to leave. No! Jump and hit. Free fall. Something slipped. The shadow sensed it in the dark of the closet. It reached out instinctively with a foot to keep the glass from hitting the hard floor, and instead, softer footwear. It did, and still cracked, and hit the ground rolling. The light blasted back onto the door. It bled from underneath. The bigger shadow flicked its head towards the door. The steps of the man and the light were loud and approaching. The large shadow launched back to where it had been on the ceiling. Just in time. The door flew open. Light shot into the dark to pinpoint the source of sound. It saw a small vial on the ground. The man stepped forward cautiously. He squatted to eye the vial. It had a small, squiggly, black, shapeless object in it leaping about. The man grinned at this, and knew the sound was just this small thing. He picked up the vial to place it on the shelf, and then saw part of the black goo pulling out of the crack he now noticed in the glass container. He set it back on the shelf in a hurry, and not without a gasp, and flew out the closet, slamming the door shut, and left the room. The inside of the closet was quickly empty, however, as it would be discovered upon inspection later. Lots of experiment data, and petri dishes, and the like, still sat, mostly, lifelessly inside. However, dark as the small specimen room might be, it was two shadows less darker, one big and one small.